Well, hello there, traders. Welcome to TOGS Trading Podcast number 4. We've made it 4 weeks in so far, and thank you for everybody who has subscribed to the channel so far. You can do so on the old subscribe button. Thanks to those of you who've sent us feedback and comments and questions and insights from your own trading journey. It's fabulous. It's good to know that it's just not me and Ian sat here in our own little echo chamber speaking to ourselves. And anyway, those of you joining us for the first of your TOGS Trading Podcast, this is really about Ian and myself, okay, from taking our conversations from sort of 10 years ago, sat in pubs in Dublin, bringing it into the modern day in terms of providing a bit of insight and guidance on what the trading journey is really like. So I'll introduce my good mate Ian. Looking good, Billy Ray. How are you doing?
Well, okay, I'm getting over the flu since last week. So I had quite a significant flu for the last couple of weeks, and I wasn't really working or doing anything else, and that was a thing. I actually took some days off and didn't trade because couldn't concentrate. And it's just one of the things as well when we were talking about it last week, which I thought was important, is that when you're talking about how much money you need to make every month or every week or whatever, these types of times we are not able to work basically end up appearing every so often, and they have to be factored in. I had now 2 weeks, 2 weeks off in effect, and now as I'm starting to get back to work, your performance doesn't ramp up that quickly. It's not like you get into your Formula One car and drive it at exactly the same speed as you did the week before. So I have to follow a process. Now that I've been off a few days, I have to follow a process about getting back into work, which means small position sizes, very conservative trading, just to make sure that everything is kind of okay, and just go back nice and slowly. Don't rush too much. Don't get myself into trouble. All that kind of stuff. But it's one of the things that you really have to realize with trading, is that there is no sick pay. If you don't work, you don't get
Yeah.
paid. And if you don't work and you don't win, you don't get paid. And you're going to have periods like this. So it's really the income. You can never think about it as an income business as such, like as in a business that's going to pay you X amount of money every week. And you really need to have, some sort of cash pile outside of what you're doing so that you can draw from it when you need to. You need to be able to take that time off. There are things, as I was just telling you before we started recording, like there's a I have another house, and the house needs building work, and that's 12, or needs roofing work, and that's the quote came in this morning for €12,000. So you need to have some sort of cash on hand that you can dip into to cover all of these sort of eventualities, which is part of being
Yeah.
properly funded.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot going on there. Most importantly, hopefully you're feeling a bit better there and stuff, so you're feeling good to it and what have you. But
Yeah.
you're right there on some really good points in terms of yeah, when you are sick, you probably shouldn't be trading really, because there's nothing worse than making crappy trading decisions and then knowing, do you know what, I shouldn't have traded it, I wasn't up to it and
Mm.
stuff. Why do that to yourself? But the problem is people have that pressure from, let's say, from external to trading. Okay, as in you're effectively, you're a sole trader, a self-employed person, and so there's no sick pay or what have you. You don't work, you don't get paid, and we are conditioned into this. I need to do a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, etc. And trading doesn't work like that. So yeah, talk about to traders about building a strategic reserve, which is just basically enough to get you through what could be days, could be weeks, sometimes it might be months. We'll come on to that a little bit later in our main theme of the session and stuff, and being able to
Mm.
to being able to sort of to get through that without feeling the undue external pressure that I've got to sit down, I've got to trade, etc. Because it's when you want to be trading for opportunity rather than trading for money. The moment you sat down there saying I need money today to pay rent, you're in a different place, and it becomes a very challenging, very challenging way to trade and stuff. So, all spot on points there. So, today's session, all right, we just thought we would talk about kind of trading challenges of our own. I suppose that Ian's already probably kind of started off on that. The kind of what we wanted to sort of focus on was the I think sometimes people realize, or rather think that that once you're trading for yourself, trading full time, that you get to some sort of golden land of of honey and promise, etc., and you can sit there in your sort of zen-like space, or actually just basically trading as and when you will. And I'm here to tell you that that's not really the case. It's a good place to get to. It's a great place to work at, but once you get there, yeah, you have to constantly still work at staying there. Okay, it's kind of like how you're getting into your favorite sports team, whether that be a rugby team as a start of the Six Nations or a football. It's a journey to get there, but once you're into that team, you have to work almost twice as hard to stay in that team, and that's in some respects that's similar to trading. You get to that space, but then actually you have to continually work to stay there, at your best. It's a real case of there's always challenges to address. There's always things you're looking at to work and improve in your overall business, and that there's lots of elements to that. So Ian, yeah, would you agree with that? And if so, what are the kind of challenges that kind of keep your brain cells ticking over in the dead of night?
But I was just thinking when you're saying that, I think I've said this before on one of the other podcasts, because it's like crossing the Rubicon the day you become consistent, which you really believe is going to be like this big massive day, balloons will fall from the ceiling and bands will play or whatever will happen. And it's not like that. It's a very sort of quiet transition, because you just wake up one day and you suddenly think, hang on a sec, I just haven't lost money in a long time. Or not significant money in a long time. And then suddenly it dawns on you that you're now consistent. And then you've got through that massive thing. And then to get to where you actually want to go with trading, you just have this massive amount of work ahead. It's as much work, I think, on the other side. It's not, I don't think it's as panicky in a way, because you are consistent. So you are starting from a strong base, but the amount of actual work to go from just being consistent to being, where you want to go is massive. And when I was sitting down, I was thinking about challenges, what challenges are coming up. Um, I thought the very first one was basically make more money and while looking cool doing it, really, is that they all broke down into that. Um, and a lot of it for me anyway is simply just reviewing what I'm doing. Just look at the whole thing, updating up. What I was doing actually with last week was, because I couldn't do any real trading work, was I started updating my trading plan to look at some of my setups, because some of my setups, the market changes very slightly over time. You see some new things happening, and some of the setups were there for a specific psychology that existed within myself. Like I did a lot of really quick small trades where I'm sort of thinking, well, that's maybe not the way forward for me. So I was updating my trading plan, which is the business plan. Um, reviewing the trade sizes. The biggest problem, like I always face, is time management. That's basically it. Because one of the biggest problems, I think, like if you look at an awful lot of like the famous household name traders, they're either single or they're divorced, or else what they did is that when they did get married, they were already successful traders, and therefore anybody who was coming into the relationship was basically marrying into trading anyway, and there was a different sort of setup. And I think one of the problems that a lot of traders have, which includes myself, is that you're the flexible one. Like my wife works for the government. She works as a curator, so she's off doing her job, and so if there's any flexibility that needs to be flexible, it's me that gets to do the flexibility. And then I end up doing a lot of the other sort of household things, child minding, anything, everything, and anything else. And that's a real boundary problem, to make
Yeah,
sure that you're getting your core hours put in. Then there are naturally there's financial issues with that, where you have a lot of financial things on top of it. Everybody has to be housed and fed, and private school fees and holidays and all those kinds of things are all dumped on top of that. So time management is my number one. number one issue. The next one then all comes down to psychology, because all trading problems are either you're afraid, you simply don't know what to do, which isn't the case for me, or your account size isn't big enough, which also isn't the case for me, really. I mean, everybody'd love a bigger account to work with. Um, but it generally would be psychology would be generally the place where if I'm going to go and find a struggle in myself, that's where the struggle is going to be. And
Yeah,
how I tend to get around that is a lot of visualization, sort of meditation, all that kind of stuff. I mean, half the work of trading and half the work of things that I've achieved in my life have been done lying on the couch with my eyes closed and seeing each step of the problem and reviewing how I reacted to it emotionally. Um, and then once I had that sort of model of an emotional model of how I was reacting to trades, or how I was reacting to the market, or how I was reacting to big red bars that are against me, or whatever it was, then I was able to go and take that information and actually do something proper with it. Also, I had to recommit to trading, to a certain extent, because I think trading is a commitment no matter what or when you're doing it. It's you have to re-choose it, I think, several times. Because it's a lot of work, and there isn't a great social life out of it. There isn't, it looks great, but there are lots of downsides as well. And and so you have to recommit to it. I think every so often you just have to sit up there and work it out, really, to be honest with you. I suppose that's basically it. They're the main sort of personal trading issues that I have to address as the year moves on. Um, and they're very similar. A lot of newer traders would recognize a lot of those same issues. I mean, it's just that
yeah,
the size of the issues might look the same, but the size of the issue is completely different. My version of overtrading is not the same as a newer trader's problem with overtrading, for example, or any of those types of things.
yeah. No, I agree. So, all right, thanks. So there's lots there and stuff. Yeah, time management, because it's one of my own challenges. But we'll come back to that in a moment, because I kind of wanted to pick up on the conversation around boundaries, because that is actually quite that's an interesting conversation, probably
Mhm.
something that, well, it resonates with me, and it also resonates, I suspect, with a lot of people who watch and listen to this, in terms of um, not only the boundaries you have for yourself regarding, let's say, your trading business, but also those boundaries, how they are seen, and how they are either respected or ignored by those kind of nearest and dearest to you, in terms of, you said it yourself that, your wife has a kind of, let's say, kind of like a standard public sector, corporate, 9 to 5 kind of job, knows her hours, etc. For the most part. And people would have a view that, we ourselves, if you're working from home, or if you're just doing a couple of hours performance work on your trading, you're deemed to basically to have your time is free for other people to use and allocate as and when they see fit and stuff. And it's yeah, I think there's definitely an element there about sort of identifying those particular boundaries and being able to. I appreciate there's an element of picking your battles, especially if it's in terms of a relationship, but also about understanding, yeah, how other people see those boundaries that you may have for yourself. And so I know I've had challenges in the past where, people have tried to call me when I've been trading, want to talk to me and stuff, and I just don't. I think I have it, don't even. Not only do I not even answer the phone, I don't even have it in the same room, because precisely because I don't want those kind of distractions, especially when you're intraday trading. You don't want those distractions, and then other people get upset or angry about it because they can't get hold of you. And actually, the reality is, you know, don't trade. Don't call me when I'm trading, because the likelihood is, I'm not going to pick up the phone and stuff. But then there are other, let's say, physical boundaries, in terms of, if you're working from home, the space that you have and stuff, in terms of having that respected, and then also, as I said, yeah, you kind of be so you can sometimes be the, what's the right word, you're the person of last resort for every challenge, every issue, because everybody thinks you can just drop what you're doing and and run off to deal with issues. Now
Mm.
there is a possibility of that, and that's a choice the individual makes. So for example, a couple of times I have now that I'm back in the UK, now I'm living near my family. There's a couple of times I'll get, I've had calls from people because my niece or nephew have been sick at school and they need someone to go and collect them. And invariably, I'm normally the first person to be called for that. And I am happy enough to do that. In fact, I'm quite happy to help the family. But
Mm.
equally, there will come a time where, for whatever reason, I'm in a trade or what have you, and I won't do it. I won't be able to do it, and undoubtedly, I suspect that will cause frustrations and challenges elsewhere. And it is about, as I say, kind of I think definitely about understanding your boundaries and picking your own battles just on that boundaries element. And I suspect that's probably something that resonates with probably a lot of the people listening to here. A lot of the people, it might be different kinds of boundaries, but it's yeah, I think it's definitely it's an issue that needs to be watched and managed, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just thinking when you're doing it, like the biggest problem, like the problem I don't find with external people. If there's some guy sends me a text message or rings me or something in the middle of my workday, like I quite happily tell him to get lost. I don't have a big issue with that because like they're generally not paying me. They would generally want something from me. So, if it doesn't suit me at that particular moment in time, and there's so many sort of newer traders as well, particularly that everybody's looking for help. So it's not like it's your only social outlet for the day is going to be, if you want to choose to do that, is going to be this one conversation with this one person who wants to find something out about fractals or something like that. So it's really family, I find, is the one that you that need to be managed more because they can physically implant themselves in the same room as you. That's one thing, and I think then it depends as well. For a lot of guys that I've talked to over the time, it depends on what type of childhood you had, because guys with authoritarian parents have poor boundaries and they will struggle with that. So that's one big huge thing. It depends on how much money you're making. That's a huge big thing because
Yeah.
if you're going over to your wife and you're saying, "Oh, look, I just made this all this money, and now you can go buy a handbag." Well, not my wife would be interested in handbags, but they take the point. Um, it becomes in their self-interest to leave you alone. But there's large periods of time where particularly when you're learning, where you're not making money, but you still need to turn up, or you're not making very much money, and it's very hard to inflict a boundary for something that isn't generating something. There is no reason. You can't sit there and say, well, if I don't trade the open now, I won't make 2 grand today or whatever it is.
Yeah,
So it's quite difficult to, until you make money, it can be quite difficult to enforce those types of boundaries. And then a lot of guys, a lot of guys are very duty centered people. There's an awful lot of a particular problem with that. I think with males and males in particular. I think women are much better at minding their boundaries than men are, and I suppose they have a lot earlier training in boundary minding than we would. Um, I mean, when you go out and you look at all the guys climbing the poles in the storms, it's a duty basically that they're doing, and I think that a lot of guys feel like this very big thing of duty towards their family, and therefore when the family needs something, whether it's somebody has to go to the school pick up
yeah,
unusual thing, or when they have to do something else, cook a dinner, that duty thing will kick in, and
yeah,
it
yeah.
will it will catch them. It'll catch them. But I find it anyway. For me personally, it's probably my greatest challenge. I mean, it's an amazing thing to say that it is harder to maintain my boundaries with my family than it is to make money in the stock market. Really, seems like a bizarre thing to do. Like, but
Uh,
I'm sitting here at the moment, and I was just before this.
I,
My son
I
asked me
think
could I
you
pick him
find
up
that
early from
resonates
school
with a
this
lot of
morning
people.
because
Yeah,
he's been a bit sick recently as well. And they gave me the flu. And I'm sitting there and I'm really struggling with the whole concept. Like, will I just go and collect him, or will I get some work done? So it's a daily
yeah.
problem. It's a daily
It
problem.
is. And so I think that kind of boundary links in also into kind of like time management. Okay.
Mm,
And so you've got on one side of time management, you've got boundaries. Other times you've got other external commitments. And also, I think one thing for me is also about managing energy, managing fatigue, which we'll come into.
Mm.
But I think, yeah, that time management becomes enormously important, and recognizing you can't be all things to all people. You can't do everything, and so it is about being able to prioritize your time accordingly. Now, for me, I've got lots of other commitments. I've got other businesses and stuff that I'm involved with. I've got other activities I'm involved with, etc. So, you have to become better at basically scheduling your time and managing your time. And then for me, there's also the link with regards to managing fatigue. So most people watching this won't know, but 18 months ago, I had to have emergency surgery for what turned out to be cancer, and then I had 6 months of chemo after that, and I was very fortunate. It's very fortunate they dug out the cancer and stuff, and the chemo cleared off the last of it and stuff. And so I'm very very grateful, very happy, and very pleased. But invariably, when you do chemo or any major operation like that, it knocks you out and stuff. And so, I didn't trade for those 6 months whilst I was going through chemo because I just thought that was stupid. But then, there was a good about 4 months afterwards of basically just finding getting back on my feet, literally and figuratively. And even now, I still have the kind of issues to manage that. And so I have had to manage my energy and manage fatigue, in that, and recognizing that, if I've had a really long, busy day, I run out of steam much quicker than I used to, and fighting it is not a terribly smart idea, because if I fight it on that day, well, then it tends to have a knock-on effect the kind of next morning and the next 2 mornings when I want to be when I want to be at my best. So in terms of like intraday trading, it's now a case of, whereas 10 years ago I was working for hedge funds and stuff, it was a case of, you would do the European session, you'd have a break, you do the American session, you'd have a break, do your work, and then clear off, and you'd be doing that 4 or 5 days a week. Now it's more a case of choosing 3 to 4 sessions a week. There you go. And just basically saying, right, okay, do 3 to 4 good sessions a week when you're on top of your game, and you can schedule it in, rather than just trying to be there every day, hammering away at intraday, because it just basically it's not really feasible. It's not really feasible. And the kind of strange thing is that well, we've talked about this. You're conditioned into, like, as I said earlier, fair day's work for fair day's pay. You think you've got to go there every day and do it, and actually you don't. You don't. It's a performance activity, isn't it? It is better to
Mm.
basically do a few sessions really really well, rather than commit to doing 2 sessions a day, 5 days a week. And so by the end of the week, you're a bit burnt out. You're a bit behind the drag curve. You're not performing at your best, because that invariably, that's when you kind of you tend to fall back. You fall back on your heuristics. You fall back on your biases. All your good standards, all your good discipline. It gets burnt away, and then by the end of the week, you're making crappy, sloppy, impulsive, knee-jerk decisions, which rarely end well. So yeah, managing time in terms of a schedule, but also linking that to managing energy, managing fatigue is is something that I've got to constantly keep on top of and stuff. But
Mm.
I suspect that's not a problem for a young thruster like yourself there, Ian.
Well, actually, I'd say quite the opposite. I had a small taster of it with the flu during the week. Basically, I brought my son, for example, I brought my son to the dentist on Monday, and then came home and had to go to bed. I was just exhausted after the whole thing. Um, no, I think managing energy is a huge thing, basically, because it's very dangerous to yourself to turn up at times in the market where you are not at your best. And there is this huge draw to do it. And I found I used to work, so I was doing a bit of the morning, like I was doing the morning session, the London Open around 8 o'clock, and then coming back to do the afternoon session. I was finding that I just was doing both of them mediocrely. And you need one good trade a day, really. That's what you
Yeah,
really need. And then the rest of it is just position size and whether you're going to make. And that position size dictates your income, and it's not the amount of trades, and it's not how long you're there or whatever you're doing. It's just that you took the right risk with the right amount of whatever at the right time. One of the other things I noticed as an aging middle-aged man, like I started when as I was saying, I was going to the doctor tomorrow. So my normal bloods, I asked them to track my testosterone now for the last few
Right.
years, so that I have an idea if that starts dropping. Because like I used to do a lot of weightlifting. When I was in whoops, when I was under 40, I used to do a lot of weightlifting, and like I had really quite high testosterone from doing all that resistance type stuff. And it's a different quality of life because you're fitter, you're full of, I mean, I got in fights. That was the downside of it. But on the good side of it, you just had more lust for life. And for this type of job, where it is about your performance and your motivation and your ambition, it was quite a good thing to do all those types of that type of heavy exercise and increase your testosterone. But I keep an eye on it, like basically because I think if you ran into a problem with it at some stage, if it got too low, I think it would just wreck your trading, because you just be lethargic and you don't want to do anything and you wouldn't have um, um, you just wouldn't do it basically. But yeah, no, definitely I would have to manage. I'd have to be conscious of managing my energy and like my very typical, like my worst day. Like I have the same type of days I've been noticing recently, like where if I am going to have a bigger loss day, it always starts with a busy morning doing something that is nothing trading related. So I could be out doing whatever I was doing, and then I arrive back in, and then I don't connect with the market. I don't sit down. I don't get that extra half hour that I really need, and then it spirals, and then I end up in a couple of bad trades, and I make a significant loss, and that's a simple energy thing. I arrive back from someplace. I'm too tired to be 100% ready for trading. I'm too head busy to be 100% ready for trading. And then, you know,
Yep.
and I,
Distracted. Yep.
yeah, and I realize I get about five of those a year. And so it takes a week to repair the damage of those days that if I was more cognizant of it, I get 5 extra weeks off for
Mhm.
no financial cost to myself. So, it
Yeah.
makes that from that point of view, it makes a big thing. I would be very conscious of.
Totally. Totally. And it's just to pick one out, it's just kind of trying to bang home this point to, let's say, new traders, younger traders and stuff is that, if you, especially if you're intraday trading, you should be there at your desk, wherever that desk is or however it is, really 30 to 60 minutes before your session
Mm.
starts to get yourself into the flow, to get yourself, make sure you're settled, make sure you're focused, make sure that you're connected to that market. Because I see so many people who, at the start of their training careers, DAX opens at 7 o'clock London time, and they're kind of rolling out of bed at 5 to 7, in the dressing gown and stuff, trying to be the dude out of the Big Lebowski, thinking that they can just basically switch on performance and engage with markets, and then wonder why their performance is slow and crappy and such, and that they're not making any progress. And I keep telling people, you have to respect your time, you have to respect your market, you have to respect your capital, you have to respect your trading business, and you, by being a 30, 60 minutes time, you're giving yourself the best chance of trading well, but you are also reducing the likelihood of you having a crappy trading session, right? Because because you've had time to focus and get ready for it, rather than just turn up as you just expertly sort of described there, having been unfocused, distracted, not really at the races, always behind the drag curve, constantly behind the drag curve, and then what do you know? Your
Mm.
performance isn't as good as you'd like it to be. It's
Yeah.
just it's common sense, but that, even though people don't, people a choose not to employ that common sense, or b, other areas of their life, those boundaries aren't respected, and that has a knock-on impact onto your trading, doesn't it?
Yeah. What I find is that if you don't turn up, for one thing, when you do turn up on time, you sit there, there's a particular anchor point that you switch on eventually in your brain. And that sort of changes how you think, and you start thinking in the way that you're supposed to think about with the market, and it feels a certain way. So there's a feeling that I should feel
Yeah.
And I probably even get more and more cognizant of that as I go on in trading, that there's a certain feeling. So if I sit in front of the computer, if I don't feel a certain way, then I'm not trading properly, because I'm not, because without that feeling, I'm not focused. Without that feeling, I'm not energized to be doing what I'm doing. And the second thing is that you need that time to make a plan, because day trading or intraday trading is trading the needs of a higher time frame through the medium of a lower time frame. So if you're trading a 5 minute chart, you're looking at what the 60 minute and the daily needs. So if you have I don't know, prices coming back to a support that you expect to hold, you would have that plan. That's the time you make that plan, where you sit there and go, okay, price needs to come back to here. This is the support that I would need to hold if the longs need to step in for the price to go back up. And it makes it a relatively simple process after that, then, because the rest of the next hour at least is all more or less mechanical, because then you're just waiting for price to come back down to that area. And then in that area, you have a mechanical way of entering your trade. And it's all it's following your plan. And the thing is that if your plan is wrong, that's no problem, because that means that the market has decided to do something else. And then you can go and make a new plan. And that new plan will probably, you're making that new plan in the light that you now have this information. So if it broke your support, then it probably wants to go down. So now you're looking at the next pullback up to short to enter into that trend, or so on. So it's the plan that you're making after your first plan is a plan with even more information given to it. And so its chances of success are higher, because it has real time, in the moment, actual updated information. So that's it's really a crucial thing. And I think it's been, when I was going through the process of going through my trading plan again, that was one of the things I was really emphasizing in it. It was that planning process, that half hour beforehand. It's worth it's it's worth weeks of work,
Yeah.
to just get that
Yeah.
extra half hour beforehand. It's I think it's probably the most crucial time of the day. The actual trading bit of it, you're just trading a plan, but the plan you have to have in the first place, and that's your first half hour, I think.
Yeah. It's uh, it links into having, we talked last week about trading plans in terms of business plans, and also, let's say, your tactical trading plan. But it links
Mm.
into, part of that is about having a routine. Part of that links into having a routine and doing the good stuff, so that you're in your best place possible to make good choices, good decisions, because things can change and happen on an intraday market very, very quickly. And if you're not in a good place, the likelihood for you to get pulled apart, pulled away from your intentions, it just becomes easier and easier. And also your likelihood of reaching levels of decision fatigue, that happens much faster. And so it's just that you just take that half an hour beforehand just to get yourself in a good place, take a bit of time, connect to the market, connect with your purpose for the session, identify, do your analysis, and then be ready to work it. It should the market give you the opportunity, I think absolutely invaluable as a way to basically help improve yourself as a certainly as an intraday trader. I'd say for any trading, but certainly definitely as an intraday trader and stuff. And it's kind of interesting. You made a point earlier there about kind of engaging in visualization and such, and I find I'm actually not that good at visualization. I can do it for a little while, but I can't do it for a long time. So basically, I actually what I did was I kind of created my own guided visualization. I kind of wrote it down, and then years ago got a sort of a girlfriend of mine who's she's an Irish actress, basically to read it out, because she still does have a very alluring voice, shall we say. And so actually I would either I'd listen to it at my desk beforehand, or on my cycle to my trading office and stuff, I would have it in, listening to it and what have you, to basically just to start to get me a little bit focused, get me a little bit just into the zone, so to speak, getting ready for it and such. So that's just an example of visualization can help you, but if you're not very good at it, there is always a way. There's a solution to be found, isn't there? You can find a creative
Mm.
solution
I think
to
so. I think that visualization is, I mean, you can use it for so many things. It's like when I was a young single man and I wanted to go out and meet girls, I would visualize how to do it. So I'd have the first 20 minutes of the whole thing all worked out in my head. And then I would sit down and I would think about whatever
Yeah,
girl I was thinking about, and then I would think about what was she like and what does she not like, and then just try and feel all the different emotions and put yourself in the from the perspective of the other person
that's
and
once
see how
again,
they would.
that's a whole different podcast. That is
It's a whole
Ian
different
and stuff.
podcast,
I
but
tell you,
but it's the same
that's
thing. It was just,
season
and
two.
that's where I learned to use it first was, like being in my early 20s and literally having to sit down and visualize
Yep.
and think, right, well, how am I going to get from here to over there? And that was a big thing of it. And the other thing that was just hitting me there with that with boundaries, why you have to be tight with boundaries, is that people don't understand what you do. So
Yeah,
they don't
yeah. There is that.
understand that there's
There is
a
that.
that you effectively, like, there's a thing called a cash session and it starts at this time and it ends at that time, and that's the time you make most of your money. Um, so they're a bit like, well, can't you miss it this time or whatever?
Yeah,
There's always something else, and people don't understand what you do. And unfortunately, then sometimes if people don't understand what you do, you have to put that boundary in against, which is annoying for them, but you have to put that boundary in because you know what you need to do, and so they need to sort of fall into line, like, basically, I think. But
yeah,
yeah, visualization is, it's as simple as closing your eyes, I think, and then just imagining the situation, the thing that you want to do, and then try and feel how you feel. And it's a very
yep,
cheap way of overcoming a lot of problems before they occur. So if you could sit down and think about yourself in a losing trade, for instance, you can you can learn to feel those things, like feel the negative emotions of being in it, and like how do you feel and how do you react to it. And then you've practiced, and then when it actually happens for real, you actually have a, oh, I've been here on the couch already and I've thought about it, and I kind of have some plan with what to do, So I think it's a great, I think
yeah.
it's a great
Well, it
skill.
does, and it is it is a useful tool, Rob, for topical, but and I realised that I used it an awful lot in sports and in battles. I would think about, oh, this is how I want this is how I want this pitch to come to me, a hit, or this is how I'm going to take this free kick, or this is how I want this pass, or this is how I want to shoot this missile, or this is how I want to get that guy and stuff. And I would think ahead of it and kind of picture it and connect it. And I would do that, and I still do that with training. I just found that there's some people who sit down and could
Mm.
quite literally, they could do 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minute kind of guided visualizations. And I found when I tried to do that, my kind of brain went off in all sorts of directions and stuff. And so I was just like, right, just get yourself a little 5 minute piece, that is specific to you and your trading, and then just basically bang, just get that nailed down and connected and stuff, and have a bit of a listen to that, just to get yourself in the right frame of mind and stuff. So yeah, so I think one of the other challenges we both maybe talked about a little bit is about scaling. All right, scaling up.
Mm.
Okay, in terms of actually trading size. All right, not necessarily scaling up in terms of um, more trading or more instruments or anything, but actually, as you said that earlier, just one good trade a day is all it takes, but actually getting that one good trade at a size that is significant, that can be, that can be a challenge that I think traders are always working towards, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Because the first thing that happens when you size up, when you put on more size, bigger trade, is that your emotions become bigger. So
Yeah,
you're going to emotionally react. So some of the things like that have been, like, there's a certain level of position size where I don't really feel it, and I'm just effectively playing, and I tend to do horrendously well in terms of percentage return, like, how many trades work out and all that kind of stuff. They tend to do very, very well. And I find, as I've always found that, as well, there's two things I say about it. One is that because that fear, because it's all fear at the end of the day, is what you're talking about, is that fear is the reason that I'm a professional trader now and not one of the also rans, because I had that really intrinsic level of fear in myself when I was trading, which caused me in the times when people would normally blow up to be very conservative and to not be overly ambitious with trying to make too much money too quickly. And it's the first thing I always tell everybody I've ever mentored is that stop trying to make money.
Yeah.
It's process. It's not trying to make money. And I think it's like what I found in recent times is like I go through the same process as well. I tend to I have my position size and then I'll add something onto my position size. And then you'll go through a losing cycle. Something will go wrong, and then I'll end up falling back to my other position size and sort of filling up my account or doing something like that. And so it tends to be a lot of back and over. And then there's a certain level of the only way I've managed to do it was kind of basically hold my nose and hope for the best and sort of go through the process of trying to size up because in as I progress with this business, size is going to be the defining difference between being that success that you want to be and being just another trader who makes a living basically and it's something that I see with so many traders. I've known so many retail traders over the years, and they tend to get to a size and then they stop.
Mhm.
They don't really progress too far beyond it, and sometimes I don't know why that is because there are guys I've worked with for years and I know them for years and I know they're trading for years and that they haven't necessarily switched their position size in 5 years. They tend to just trade enough that suits them and stay at that position size. And I don't know why that is. And even myself, like I'm quite slow at changing my own position size. And it's definitely a thing I have to do this year, is go for a bigger position size.
Yeah.
Because what's the point? What's the point of doing all that work to just
Yep.
lock at this one simple thing, which is changing the number on the top of the screen from X amount of contracts to X amount of contracts or something. It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
I'm like yourself in terms of I have known lots of now ex retail traders who achieved a level of consistency. And let's just say hypothetical numbers here. I don't know. They were trading. They had a spread betting account that they were trading at like £2 a point. They've achieved, a couple of weeks consistency, and then basically they've suddenly gone to like trading £20 a point. They've just absolutely just made this huge, huge jump, and it terrifies them. They make terrible choices and basically give back all of the success they've had over the last couple of months. They kind of might give it back in a week because they've just basically jumped, and they've jumped because once again there are external drivers that are basically rattling around their head, as in they ate where they live, they ate their job, they ate their life, and they just want to escape from it as quick as they can. Whereas actually, what they should have been doing is, going from, it doesn't sound very exciting, going from like £2 a point to £2.50 to £3 to
Mm.
£3.50, just basically gentle. And even then, they'll have found moments of resistance, find levels of resistance, and we all have them at different levels. For could be just hugely psychological elements. It could be linked back to previous things. I know I had a challenge when it kind of in like one day I'd made more than I'd earned in an entire year at the start of my working career, and you just like it blows your little mind because you're like, hang on a minute, this I did a whole year in a really important job as like a junior Air Force officer, and I've actually just this afternoon in 4 hours actually generated the same amount of kind of revenue and stuff, and you're just like, what's going on and stuff. But and everybody will have them at different price levels for different reasons. But it's kind
Mm.
of, I think you have to do it, but you do it tentatively, as in you're just pushing those levels, not jumping for £2 a point to £50 a point, thinking that here we go, sunshine. I'm gonna smash it out of the park, because actually that rarely works, and it's actually you're the one who's going to get smashed at the other side of it, stuff. So I've lost count of the number of, let's say, ex-retail traders who I've seen who've gone down that path, and the psychological damage it's done them has basically has ended what could have been a trading career.
Mm. I was just thinking when you were saying that there's self-identity. The winning changes your self-identity.
Yep,
An awful lot of people are go into trading for whatever reason they want to go into trading. Usually it's because they're unhappy with something else in their life, and they tend to identify themselves as whatever it is, but it's not the identity that they necessarily want. And then you go in, and then suddenly you start making like money, and
yep,
it can, and you do have those things. Like, I mean, I had the same experience very early on, like where I was making, because I had no idea what I was doing basically, and so you're making tons of money
yep,
because you're putting on basically what are wild bets, and I've seen two problems with it. One is it changes your identity, so you suddenly becoming the person that you wanted to become at the end of the day, at least financially, and that causes a stress in the person. And some people are very uncomfortable with seeing this big massive change in themselves. The other side I've seen as well is that there are some people who they're kind of narcissistic. Usually, there's usually some element of narcissism in there, and they see themselves already as winners. They
yeah,
even if they don't, even if they're vulnerable narcissists, they would still see themselves, in something, and then they feel that they're entitled to it. And the problem that they have is that once they're entitled to it, they expect it, and once they expect it, they're going to operate in a way that they think is going to guarantee it, but before they have the skill. So they go in and they bet big because they are the kind of guy that is the winner guy. And of course, because narcissistic people always believe that they're special in some way, God has anointed them somehow. So they feel that it is they're right. They're in the right place doing the right thing, only they're not. They're just being lucky for a certain length of time. So I see that as a big problem, and I even see for myself, like, is that every time you change your position size, it changes your identity as much as it changes anything else, and and that affects everything because the bigger your position size that you're able to carry on, the generally actually the happier of a person you are. You know,
yep,
um, I really believe that anyway. For a certain extent, is that I think that it's if you are significant, if you are able to change your position size and you're able to acclimatize to a new, larger, greater level of success, then you're just simply happier. It's happiness, to a certain extent. But it's a bumpy ride to change your position size. And it's one of the things I'd written down when I was just as a thought is like, it's very hard as well that when you're in that position where you are changing your position size, you're already a world-class trader, but you
mhm,
live in your house and you don't talk to anyone.
yep.
So you could be, it's a bit like you're in the Olympics, but you don't even know it, to some extent. Like, and and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's just a big thing. It's something, well, anyway, it's something I have to do a lot of this year is change my position size, I
Yeah,
think.
I think we're both on we're definitely both on that and stuff. And
Mm.
just an element on as just before we wrap up, that element on identity, and how success changes you. There's a great book by he's a man at Trinity College in Dublin and stuff. And I went to see him do a presentation and stuff. The name of the book escapes me, but it was all about how successful people, their brain changes and has an impact. I'll tell you what, I'll find that and I'll put it in the comments on the YouTube piece. People can watch it. And the other one I learned from self identity about was Maxwell Maltz wrote a book on psycho-cybernetics, which is a good read. And his earlier life, he'd been a plastic surgeon, and the thing that brought him to that kind of self-development world was basically he was a plastic surgeon. I think in I don't know California in the, I don't know, was it 50s, 60s, something, and he would find lots of very attractive women coming to see him, wanting plastic surgery, whether it be face, lips, nose, breasts, whatever. Because and until they didn't have that, they thought that having that plastic surgery would make them happy. And what he realized was that actually he would do the work, paid very well for it, but these females, mostly females, they still weren't happy. Even though they'd done all this work and spent all this money, they weren't actually happy. And actually, what he came to the conclusion about was they didn't have a they didn't understand or manage their own self identity, and those external factors didn't really have a huge impact or change the needle in terms of their own internal self identity and stuff. And so that's where that led him off on this journey. And I find it fascinating, right? And it's a book I'd recommend for traders to read, to help basically understand, manage your own self identity, and see the good, the bad, and the ugly in it, and look at what you need to do to be able to change it and stuff. So there you go. So once again, as I always say, time flies when you're having fun, Ian, and stuff. So we've come to the end of this particular podcast, but hopefully there's plenty there for people to listen and to take away from. Okay, just to show that we've been doing it for years, but we still have plenty of challenges to work upon. There is never a point where you're just kind of done. If anything, I'd say the moment you think, "Oh, I've got all of this cracked," is the moment you're just about to get a proper smack and stuff. Pride comes before a fall and all that. So hopefully people have listened to that and take apart from it and resonate. Maybe it helps with their own journey. So the next session is next week, but we've got 4 sessions coming up about the 4 M's of trading: markets, method, money, and myself. Now, pretty much that's the prism I look through trading. Next week we'll talk about markets. Okay, do you understand your market? What do you need to know to trade that particular market well? So there's plenty to talk about there. As always, thanks for joining us. Subscribe. Okay, please, feedback, comments. We'll gladly take it. If you've got questions or things you'd want to do that, or join the Facebook group. Okay, that we'd be very pleased to see and hear from you. And just that final point. Thanks very much, Ian. Thanks for joining us today and stuff. Grand. Excellent. All right. Well, listen, thanks everybody. We'll speak to you soon, and trade well, everybody. Cheers.